In today's inaugural Chainsaw Man Part 2 chapter review video, we're going to talk about symbolism, we're going to talk about the new protagonist slash maybe antagonist, and we're going to talk about parallels between Chainsaw Man Part 2 and Part 1. But before we get into any of that, class is officially in session, boys. I've linked a poll at the top of the description of this video where you guys can vote on what grade you think this chapter of Chainsaw Man Part 2 should get. A, B, C, D, or F. And in next week's chapter review video, we'll go over the overall chapter GPA, as well as some of your comments from this video. Get it? Chapter GPA, because it's about school, whatever. But while you're down there in the description looking for the voting link, why don't you leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you like Chainsaw Man related content. Just shooting my shot, let's just dive into the review. In classic Chainsaw Man fashion, we begin today's chapter questioning what the absolute f*** is going on. The chapter begins in a classroom where a teacher is introducing their new class pet, the Chicken Devil, to the students. The teacher, whose name is Mr. Tanaka, says that they're going to be keeping this Chicken Devil named Bucky as a class pet for the next 100 days, then they're gonna kill him and eat him to learn about the preciousness of life. I'm certain this went over fantastically with the PTA. And after that, our new heroine is introduced, and she's kept intentionally nameless for the first half of the chapter. And she's probably the most resentful human on this planet, relenting every other happy student she sees and even wishing death upon a happy student couple in a stairwell she walks by. Assumedly because she herself gets no bitches. But our nameless heroine especially hates the new devil class pet because her parents were killed and eaten by a devil. So our nameless heroine goes to the roof of the school to eat her lunch alone so she can escape all of her peers who are just over the moon about their new devil pet. But while she was on the roof eating alone, wallowing in her self-pity much like I do when one of my tweets doesn't get very many likes, she's approached by another girl, the class president. The class president tries to get her to go and make friends with her other classmates, but our heroine refuses, saying she has no need for friends. Our heroine notes that the class president is eating a very famous Chainsaw Man bread bun, and the class president says she's collecting the Chainsaw Man stickers. Our boy Denji seems to finally have gotten himself a brand deal. This causes our heroine to lament their society to the class prez. She says their society is corrupt, their mayor has a DUI, half the buildings aren't up to safety code, and on top of that, there's a devil vigilante running around pretending to be a devil hunter. That's basically like me, a Jewish person, saying there's a superhero in an SS uniform going around killing Nazis. And to make things even worse, they're even keeping a pet devil in their classroom now. The class president tries to console her, saying that the Chicken Devil will be dead in 100 days anyway. But let's just quickly talk about what happened in the absolute massive world building implications. It seems the world that our characters are living in is a post-Chainsaw Man society, and this is our first glimpse at what that world looks like. We all know that Fujimoto is a massive film buff at this point, and this seems like maybe it's his way of writing his own dark and fucked up Marvel Cinematic Universe. Iron Man and Hulk get their own Ben & Jerry's flavor, and Chainsaw Man gets his own meat buns and collectible stickers. It seems like society as a whole has accepted devils and even praises them and wants to integrate them into everyday life. But devils are extremely powerful and by nature want the death of all humans, like Angel said in Part 1. But that's not all. With the implication that humans have accepted devils, that means your average Joe Schmo could probably have a devil contract, and even a corrupt political leader who could really fuck shit up. And we're getting a small glimpse of that with how closely packed these buildings are together, and our heroine saying that most of these buildings aren't even up to code. So now that we have a more proper idea of what this post-Chainsaw Man society looks like, let's go into the second act of the chapter. The roof scene ends with our heroine saying that she wishes both Bucky and Chainsaw Man would die. I'm certain this won't have any implications later. So now we're back in the classroom where we get a 2 full-page montage of Bucky being a lovable class clown, making all of the students laugh with his chicken and egg-based puns. And our girly fucking hates this. Devil kill parents, class get devil, class love devil, it doesn't compute for her. And I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. I'm totally with the other students on this one, that Bucky's a riot. So now we get a 3-month time skip, and it's time to kill Bucky, and our protagonist is super chuffed about this. But suddenly the class president, the same class president that reassured her that they were gonna kill Bucky 3 months ago anyway, stands up and says, "I talked it over with the class, we don't want to kill Bucky. Bucky's our friend." And then the teacher's like, "Woo, you guys passed the test. The whole point of this was to learn about the preciousness of life. Let's skip math class and go play soccer outside." Our heroine is just an empty husk at this point after hearing that. So they're all outside playing now, but not our heroine. She's on the sideline, moody and depressed, kinda rightfully so. The teacher tries to get her to join in. She says no. The class prez tries to get her to join in. She says no. Finally, Bucky says, "Asa mitaka," come out of your shell and play soccer with me. This is the first time our heroine Mitaka is called by her name, and this kinda moves her. She thought that the only people who remembered her name were the class president and the teacher. But this flying, headless chicken remembers her name, and Mitaka's heart absolutely fucking melts. She realized that this entire time, she was just jealous of everyone, and she deeply wanted to be accepted. So Mitaka runs to join all of her classmates, Bucky in her arms, finally ready to turn a page and accept people, let people in. Then she trips and falls onto the ground, splattering Bucky's guts all over the pavement in her dress. 1-0, baby, Mitaka's finally making her Devil Hunter debut. So obviously the entire class is shocked and horrified that their new best friend was just splattered by the quiet kid in class. The teacher runs over to the students and they all start crying and wailing over Bucky's demise. Not Mitaka though, she's still in a state of shock and bewilderment. At this point Mitaka just wants to die, all of her classmates despise her now, and she doesn't even want to face them anymore. That's the second act of the first chapter of Chainsaw Man Part 2, and may I say, that is Fujimoto at his best. The dark comedic timing of Mitaka falling on and killing Bucky is just like the Family Burger chapter in Part 1, where they keep trying to do the Family Burger chant, but more and more of the restaurant employees keep dying. And there's also the fantastic paneling of the distraught students, so it reads like you're watching a scene in a movie. The build of this chapter to the final act has been so fantastic, so let's just move on to the third and final act of this chapter. One night while Mitaka is alone and depressed in her room, she gets a sudden knock on her door. A very familiar door, might I add. It's the class prez and Mr. Tanaka. They want to take her to Bucky's grave. Mr. Tanaka says that the class prez thought that if they all went to Bucky's grave and apologized, he'd forgive them up in heaven. Yes, they think the chicken devil is up in heaven, I don't know why. So now they're walking through the streets at night when Mitaka stops at a stoplight and the class prez and Mr. Tanaka keep going. And then they turn around and they say, Mitaka, what's wrong? And Mitaka says, the light's red, we're not allowed to go. A quick Japan lesson, if you're in Japan, you'll see that no one crosses the crosswalk unless they have the signal to do so. Even if there are no cars coming, it's like an unspoken societal rule. Mr. Tanaka's like, oh yeah, you're right, safety first, haha, and this pisses the class prez off to no end. She says to Mitaka, you're always such a goody two-shoes. You know Mr. Tanaka had to apologize to the class about Bucky's death on your behalf? And then in classic Chainsaw Man fashion, she starts turning into a grotesque devil monster. Then while transforming, she says Mr. Tanaka was the one that told her, the class prez, to befriend Mitaka in the first place. And that Mr. Tanaka likes Mitaka, even though he's already having sex with the class prez. I really think the PTA is dropping the ball with this one. Do they even vet their teachers? So now the monstrous class president says she made a contract with the Justice Devil so that she could reach her happy ending with Mr. Tanaka. Which also proves that your average everyday citizen can make contracts with devils, not just devil hunters. She also revealed that it was the Justice Devil that told her to trip Mitaka so she would fall and kill Bucky. Class prez, finally in her monstrous form, takes a killing swing at Mitaka, and all Mitaka can think about is how relieved she feels. She now knows that she didn't kill Bucky and she can die peacefully. And that's exactly what happens. The class prez slashes Mitaka's face open, and in a gross, gory display of Fujimoto's artistic capabilities, she falls to the ground. But just before dying, a strange owl appears on a light pole above her and says, if you want to live, your body is now mine. Then Mitaka gets up. Her face is healed aside from a few scars going across it. Only I'm not so sure this is Mitaka anymore. Mitaka grabs Mr. Tanaka by the hair and says, Tanaka, spinal cord sword. Then rips his head off, turning his spinal cord into a sword. Class prez is like, who the hell are you? And Mitaka's like, who the hell am I? I'm the War Devil, and you're gonna be my warm-up kill. The fight ensues and it's an absolutely one-sided slaughter. At one point Mitaka cuts off one of the class president's hand and says hand grenade, and the hand turns into a grenade. This power is seeming more and more epic. Then Mitaka finally makes the killing blow, severing the class president's head. But before her head hits the ground, she gets to have a kiss with Mr. Tanaka's severed head as well. Then Mitaka says, there. A happy ending, and throws the grenade over her shoulder, causing an explosion of heads, guts, gore, blood behind her as she walks away. Tatsuki Fujimoto is such a fucking cinephile that he wrote a scene where a character says a one-liner, throws a grenade over their shoulder, and walks away from an explosion. Mitaka then sees a poster on a wall for a Chainsaw Man fan meetup and says, just you wait, Chainsaw Man, I'll make you vomit nuclear weapons back up. And then the chapter ends. I just realized I've been calling her Mitaka this entire time, but it's probably just the the War Devil at this point. So let's quickly talk about all the epic shit that just happened in this last act of the chapter. First of all, did anyone else catch that fantastic parallel to Chainsaw Man Chapter 1? Even when reading through the new chapter for the first time, I was like, this is exactly like when Denji got lured away in Chapter 1 of Chainsaw Man. I know exactly where this is going. But this went a little differently from Chainsaw Man Part 1. Whereas Chapter 1 of Part 1 was Denji's hero origin story, this feels a lot more like a villain origin story this time around. It's very possible that going forward, Chainsaw Man Part 2 might be a story from the villain's perspective. It's too early to tell right now, but there's so much speculation that can be made from one chapter alone. One thing I can say for sure is that the War Devil knows about Chainsaw Man's power to eat other devils and erase them from existence. And it seems like her motivation might be to reclaim the tremendous powers for war that Chainsaw Man had previously eaten. Something I noticed that I think you guys might be interested in is that the owl form the War Devil took could be inspired by the Owl of Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war. I don't know too much about Greek mythology, but this could be really interesting for theory crafting going forward. That's about all for today's chapter review, but if you like this series, let me know by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Make sure to stay up to date by hitting the bell button so you'll know anytime I post a new chapter review video. Also follow me on Twitter, links to all my socials down in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.